welcome back to Draft Nights. It's great to have you back home, Sam. Welcome back to Atlanta, and I think this is going to be a really awesome episode.
Thank you. It's nice to be back. Way warmer here.
Yeah,
It's fun to be home, and yeah, I'm excited to get rolling for the summer.
absolutely. And today we have a very special episode. This one might be our most divisive episode, I think, between the two of us. So,
Sure.
sparks might fly, things might happen. But today we're going to be going over who we think are going to be the winners, the dark horses, and the busts of next season's NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you put it pretty perfectly. Now, we are going to start things off with a disclaimer. We talked a
Mhm.
lot in our last episode about the Rams. The Rams are winners, folks, okay?
Yes.
Everyone knows
Yes.
that the Rams are winners. It would be too easy and too simple to look at the Rams and explain all the reasons that they're winners, so we're going to move on and look at other teams that could compete with them.
I think it really goes to show like how good this Rams team is that we have to basically make it a disclaimer that we're just not going to talk about them because it's too easy. It's too easy to say that this Rams team is going to be a winner.
Yeah. So they will not be shown. We are aware that they are in the league. We are aware of how good they are, but we also want slightly higher content than just admitting that Miles Garrett is really, really good at football. So it's a shocker, and yet we're gonna go for it.
Absolutely. Do you want to start it off?
You know what? I want you two for this one.
Okay. Okay. So the first team that I have as like my winners for next season is the Baltimore Ravens. I think that we're going to see a really big bounce back from this team. I think last season they were hampered by a couple of very key things. One, injuries. Lamar, Roquan Smith, uh, Humphrey, Madubuike, and Buchanan were all injured for large to short portions of the season, made it very hard to get into rhythm. Two, and actually sticking on the injury part, their now former head coach John Harbaugh, a lot of people claim that he was the reason for the mass injuries. In fact, Zay Flowers said that they were, quote, in full pads all the time, and even outright said, yes, he was the reason we were getting so injured. That is no longer the case. They no longer have such a rigid practice schedule. So maybe we'll see less injuries from the team. And just before we go into like more details with it, what is your take on my take, I guess?
I gotta be honest, the first team that I thought of as a winner that I was gonna put on my list was the Ravens, but I thought a little bit deeper about it, and I think that Max Crosby trade could have been very good for them, especially in this specific year. And so because of that, I didn't include it. Now, there's also the argument that Trey Hendrickson will bring massive things to
Hmm.
Baltimore. Their offense is already basically there, and without the injury problems, massive things could be happening in Baltimore. But they weren't on my specific list because I think that they still might falter due to no Max Crosby.
Yeah, and again, I do think that this team would be in a lot of a higher tier with a Max Crosby, but honestly, Trey Hendrickson isn't that far below of a step. For as great as Max Crosby is, as many tackles for a loss as he has, for as disruptive as he is, the main thing for the Ravens wasn't even really like pressure. It was just a pure lack of sacks. It was the lack of a dominant edge rusher that shifted attention away. Because previously they had Madubuike on the inside. He gets injured with a very scary injury, and now there's no dominant force on that line. We're looking that Madubuike is going to come back, and with a stronger, like I want to say, like no, true number one edge rusher. I think that takes kind of the middling defensive line that the Ravens have and elevates it up. Whether that's Trey Hendrickson or Max Crosby, I think this is going to sound disrespectful to Max Crosby. I think it's irrelevant.
That's fair. No, that's fair. I can respect that, and I can fully get on board with the Baltimore success train this year. That's totally normal to me, understandable. Not one of my top two teams, but especially
Mhm.
because they're already one of those teams that's kind of breaking through. I think that, it'll be a good year for them.
Yeah, my next two reasons why I think the Ravens are really going to bounce back and get into true contender status is Last season, their two biggest issues were defensive consistency and their offensive line. And I think that they did a really good job of addressing both issues. First, for defense, they fired John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh, if you don't remember, when he was first hired, was a special teams coordinator. This guy's been in the league and was the head coach for the Ravens for like over a decade plus. He never called the offensive plays, he never called the defensive plays. He was a game manager, but like wasn't even really doing anything. So I think bringing in a defensive mind like Jesse Minter, who in 2024 had the Chargers as the number one ranked defense, and then in 2025 had them as the sixth ranked defense. Both teams went to the playoffs with, like, honestly, very low talent wise, both on offense, aside from Justin Herbert. And the second reason, focusing on the offensive line, I think they picked up well in free agency. I think Vega Ione was an amazing pickup. He was the top rated guard coming into the draft, and they really needed to fix up the guard pairing. Now, I know they lost Linderbaum, and I do think we're going to see the effects of that coming through. But in all honesty, the least important position on the offensive line is the center. And that's not a disrespect to centers. It's just that saying when it comes to pure pass protection, which is what they were really looking for, the center has the least amount of assignments. They're usually in help.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, your reasoning in total all makes sense to me. I would argue that there are other teams that are going to take bigger steps from positions where they are now. Um, and that's why I wouldn't include them in this list. But I can see I can see where you're coming from, and I think they're going to put up a very solid fight, if nothing else. And you will see development from last year. So in that sense, they're on a positive trajectory, and because of that, I fully respect that pick, and I can understand that.
Mhm. That's all I got for the Ravens. I think that this is a team that has been competitive in the past, that were a couple of really boneheaded plays away from actually making it to the Super Bowl and potentially winning it. But I want to hear who you have in contention.
Yeah, so mine goes a little bit further down the power rankings of the NFL. This team is not about to make a Super Bowl push, but they could take the big, massive step up in the rankings, and that's the Raiders. We've talked about Fernando
Oh,
Mendoza at length for a while, but people overlook the fact that they also got Kirk Cousins. So they have both the young talent and that veteran status. I think that combination is going to be really good. And, he might not have worked for the Falcons, which is why you're giving me that look. But I have a lot of faith in that duo. I think they're going to work really well together. I think Mendoza is going to have all of the on the field talent without question. But I think that Cousins will be in the locker room helping him out, keeping him going. On top of that, I talked a little bit about it at the beginning. I think the Max Crosby trade not going through is actually really big for the Raiders,
mhm.
especially for the next couple years. And those are the years where I think they need to boost their momentum just a little bit, or just boost their momentum at all, given as how they don't really have any right now. And then the final big reason why I think that they're gonna really pick up their game this year is that new coaching staff. Kubiak coming in from the Seahawks. I think he's going to work really well with Mendoza. I think the fact they're both new is going to be a benefit for both of them. And I think is really going to bring up that Las Vegas offense.
Yeah, I could definitely see the Raiders taking a bigger step. I don't know if I would put them in my winner tier. I'd maybe put them in my like dark horse tier probably, but I think that there are question marks that a lot of people who hype up this new Ravens team seem to kind of ignore. And I'm not saying that you are, but I'm kind of speaking more generally. For example, we mentioned it last episode when we talked about the Crosby failed trade. It weighs on your psyche. Like, he was traded. He had mentally accepted, I am a Baltimore Raven now. And then boom, it was done. He has to go back to the team that said, you are not worth it to keep around. Two first round picks is better to us than you. That can weigh a lot, and that can do a lot in the locker room. Second, as someone who has watched a lot of Kirk Cousins recently, not for the like benefit of my mental health, I think that like this. joking, oh, haha, Kirk Cousins, Mendoza, they're both corny, they're both funny. Like, I just think that it's no different than any other bridge quarterback that they bring in when a team drafts a high quarterback. I don't see it as any different, to be honest. And lastly, I just think there's still so many questions at both the wide receiver position, at the cornerback position. I think that they've done good moves generally. I think Linderbaum was a great pickup, maybe a bit of an overpay, but a good pickup. I think they drafted well, but I just think that it's too black and white, ironically, for the Raiders, where it's either everyone sees them as, oh, they're going to be back in contention for the first round pick in this draft, or oh, they might be a sleeper Super Bowl pick. There has to be a medium ground. I think this is going to a team that's going to win like 8 games, take some positive steps, and make a big swing in the offseason.
That's, I think, the main reason why I have them as winners instead of dark horses. I don't have this team going to the playoffs, but any progress is progress,
True.
especially for the Raiders. That's why I have them as winners for themselves. Going being the first round pick or the first pick, pardon me, of the entire draft. You're going to need to make some changes regardless. You're looking at a team right now like the Browns who, back in 2015, 2016, they would always have the first pick. And now
Hey,
they're
they still do.
exactly, they're right back to that position. I think that the Raiders can finally start digging themselves out of that hole. And for them, that's going to be a win in itself. And so, yeah, do I think that we're about to see them in the playoffs? Not a chance. And to
Yeah.
your point about Kirk Cousins, I could care less about their personalities if they mix well. I care about the fact that he's in the big moments and that he can look at a
And he's
player,
performed super well in them,
you know, just
famously.
because he wasn't fantastic for the Falcons
Oh,
or
it's more than us.
for the Falcons or any other team that he's really played for. He just really hasn't quite made that step, has he? He's almost there though. He's clearly still on that
He's
positive
almost won a
trajectory.
playoff game. He's almost done it.
I think he does have that mindset though, and I think Mendoza, more importantly, has the skill to do it. And so, whether they're compatible or not doesn't really matter to me. The fact that Mendoza has the talent and Cousins has the mindset, I think that's why they're going to work well together. And so I think that the Raiders are winners in the sense that they're going to go from a 3-win team to a 7-win team, and that is massive progress right there.
It's true. Like, I, while it's always bad to be stuck in the middle, when you're a team that's at rock bottom, that kind of like 7, 8, 9 win season, even though to another team in a different situation, it might look like, wow, we're like in a really terrible position, like the Falcons. For a team like the Raiders, a 7, 8, 9 win season would be amazing for them. It would really show that yes, things are working, things are up.
Right.
Do
And
you
if
have
you're
anyone else? Oh,
I
sorry, you
do
go,
have a
you go.
second one. My last point about the Raiders, if you're winning those 7, 8 games, then with a couple lucky games going in your direction, you could be fighting for a wild card spot.
True,
I
very
don't
true.
think they will be, but the fact that that is a possibility is wild in Las Vegas right now. So,
Hmm.
in that sense, yeah, I think they're going to be winners. The second one, we talked a little bit about last year as well, but I think the Patriots are running it back. I think the Patriots are going to have
Hmm.
another great season. I think that their pickup of AJ Brown is fantastic. Um, and I think that they're going to have another season where they're putting a lot of talent in. Drake May's finally going to get what he needs from his receivers, and this is going to be a good year for them once again.
Yeah, I definitely can get behind it. I mean, this is a Patriots team that's really ahead of schedule, in all honesty. They performed super well last season, but I think that they're like a lot of teams in the contention, there are a lot of question marks that are kind of being ignored. Like, for example, the Mike Vrabel situation this offseason. We haven't talked about it because, like, what do we know? But I mean, every single week it feels like there's new stuff that's coming out that just, ugh, it just looks bad as an organization. It looks bad. Like, it just feels like something, it feels like a situation that a winning team shouldn't have going on.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And That also goes along a little bit with like the AJ Brown situation of he didn't really want to be in Philly. Will he really want to be in New England? Because we don't think he's going to get the targets that he wanted in Philly. So there are definitely kind of behind the scenes aspects that you can question a little bit. That being said, I think this is still a really young team, and I
Hmm.
think they're fixing a lot of their holes that they had. I think that a lot of those little offensive problems that they just needed to tweak a little bit, they actually did, which is something you don't see a lot of teams that win the Super or that lose the Super Bowl very often do. Um, and so, because of that, I think that there is a lot of opportunity for them. And whether you win a Super Bowl or not, it is a winning season to go to the playoffs and have a
True.
successful year. And so, I think that when you have such a young team doing that consistently, that's a win.
Yeah. And I'm not saying this to seem too negative on your pick or the Patriots as a whole, but like there's a great saying, and I at first didn't believe it when my Atlanta Hawks, the very young Atlanta Hawks in 2021, made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and then were promptly destroyed in six in very heartbreaking fashion by the Milwaukee Bucks. There's a saying,
There
the
seems to
worst
be
thing
some
in the world
anger right there. I'm
the
just saying.
worst thing, the worst thing in the world for a young team is to overperform and not do it because it makes the front office think, "Wow, we're like right there. We don't have to do anything." It makes the players who should be developing like linearly, you get a big spike and it's like, "Wow, we're already there. We don't have to like try. Like we're doing great." And I'm not saying that's going to happen to the Patriots, but I think that windows are a lot shorter than people think they are, especially in the NFL, where like your window really is maybe 3 seasons long. And sure, Drake May being an MVP caliber quarterback extends that, but I mean, we've seen players who were amazing year one or year two kind of fall off. CJ Stroud, when he came into the league, was dynamite, and now he's kind of a joke. I'm not saying this is going to happen to Drake May because I think Drake May is a step above, but we haven't seen the consistency year after year. And I just think that with a lot of offseason problems, I think the AJ Brown trade, while good and while setting up Drake May well for the future, I don't think that he is I don't think he's near the best wide receiver in the league. I think he was a fine pickup, but not like a Super Bowl winning pickup. And I still think that there are problems with the defense that need to get fixed, lack of star talent. But overall, this is a team that did make the playoffs. Sorry, make the playoffs. They made the Super Bowl. It's very easy to believe that they'll be back.
It's a fair analysis.
Preach, bro.
All right, you want to take it away with your second winner?
I actually don't have a second winner. I just did
Oh,
too
no,
much
you
into
don't.
the
Throw us
Ravens, but
off.
I do have for my dark horse. I have I got a lot of stats for this one.
All right, hit
This
me.
is a team that last season was fourth in defensive EPA per play. If you don't know what that is, that's expected points added per game in defense, but 28th in offensive EPA per play. This is a team that's maintained its entire coaching staff, that's brought in new weaponry. They've made a lot of moves that have kind of gone under the radar in free agency. And this is a team that, despite the narratives around them this past season, actually performed incredibly well record wise given the situation. Do you want to guess who this team is?
I'm trying to think based on keeping an entire coaching staff. I want to say like the Chargers, but
Close.
give it to me.
The Minnesota Vikings.
Interesting.
Last season, they finished 9-8. That
Good.
number nine is going to be coming up a lot in this. But this is a team that, despite all the narratives and despite all the conversation being about how bad JJ McCarthy, aka Nine, aka Nueve, performed last season, they still finished with the same record as the Lions. They still finished with barely like a tie away from the same record as the Green Bay Packers. This is a team that had one of the best defenses in the league, and over the offseason, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, and Caleb Banks. Those are three high level, potentially for Caleb Banks, but three potentially high level defensive tackles that are coming into an already very elite pass rush and run defense that Brian Flores has going on in Minnesota. The second thing to go with it is they've kept pretty much all of their weapons. They still have Justin Jefferson. Is Jordan Addison still on the team? Either way, they still have Jalen Naylor. I don't think he is. I think he might have left.
Yeah, he is.
But
He's there.
oh, he's still there? Awesome. This is like they still have their weapons intact. This is still one of the best off I think they fell off on the offensive line, but over the offseason they picked up Will Fries, Ryan Kelly, and out of Northwestern, Caleb Tierman. They both Fries and Kelly were from the Colts, who were eighth in sack percentage in the league, so very good offensive line. And the biggest move of all, they brought in Kyler Murray from the Cardinals. Do I think Kyler Murray is an MVP candidate? No. But do I think Kyler Murray could do as well as Sam Darnold did 2 seasons ago? Yes.
I mean, I love this pick, so I'm really not gonna fight it too much. I think the point that I really want to cement, like you said, is how much they've retained. Um,
Hmm.
I think it was such little things that went wrong for them last year that kind of resulted in that poor season. Or not even like you said, not even poor, but like
Hmm.
worse than expected season. Um, and I think that they have a lot to work with this year. When you look at a team that doesn't lose a lot, that's typically a team that's going to go really far, just because of that depth and that chemistry that they already have. Um, so in those weeks 1, 2, 3, when other teams are still kind of figuring things out, they've got it done. And so because of that, I really like their chances early in the season, and then I think that's just going to build throughout the season.
Hmm.
Quarterback position is the only place where I have a little bit of concern for them. But
Feels
like
like
you
that's
said,
with a lot of teams.
exactly. Like you said, Kyler Murray is a not good, but respectable quarterback. Same with JJ McCarthy. He's not good, but he's also still really young. He's 23. He does not have a lot of
He's a little bit less than not good.
you know, I want to say bad,
I would
but
say bad. I would
wow,
fully say bad.
he's gonna go
He's
to
pretty
bad.
bad. Nueve was not good.
Nueve was not good. No, but I think that he's gonna grow a lot, especially in this offseason. I would expect him
One can
on
hope.
one can hope. I do have faith in JJ McCarthy. All right, I want
Where
the
does
man.
that come from? Where is that faith
Uh,
coming from?
you know what it is? I loved watching Michigan play when they won it all. That was an
Hmm.
awesome year to watch Michigan play. So that's where the JJ McCarthy love comes from. Has he been doing well? Not even remotely, but I have faith that he can turn it around. Um, but the fact that that's one position that you point at and you say they don't really have a ton of talent there, and they have three QBs that two of them at least are still NFL caliber. Carson Wentz, I would argue, is also NFL caliber. Not good,
Forgot they're
but
still there.
NDSU represent. Um, but still, a decent amount of talent. And because of that, yeah, I got a lot of faith in this team to go really far and do really well this year.
Mm. Again, this like the difference in the team from the team that went 13-4 with Sam Darnold, the team that went 9-8 with JJ McCarthy is marginal. They made and that same team look like from 2 years ago that went 13-4 is nearly identical to the team now. Minor changes here or there, tweaks to the defense, tweaks to the offensive line, but overall very, very similar looking teams, and they dropped off 4 wins last season. I want to say almost purely because of how bad JJ McCarthy was. And let's like erase the memory of Sam Darnold winning the Super Bowl with the Seahawks. Before he came to Minnesota, he was considered unanimously as a draft bust. He was thought as like one of the
Yeah,
not one of the worst busts of the like all time, but
no, he
he
was up there.
failed for the Jets. He failed for the Panthers. He was a backup for the 49ers that performed well in like one game, and he gets brought into Minnesota to potentially be the bridge quarterback for JJ McCarthy, who like destroys his shoulder, and now he's the starter. And then boom, explosion. Like Sam Darnold is the guy, goes to Seattle, wins the Super Bowl. What is to say that that Kyler Murray can't replicate, or at least get close to the production that Sam Darnold had 2 seasons ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the things that he gets so kind of dissed on for are things that are fixable, which is big, especially as you kind of mature more. Um, and so because of that, yeah, I think that he could be that one to take the Vikings to that next step. And also the fact that their foundation is so solid already just gives you so much hope that those stars are going to be able to shine and have a platform to shine. And those players that are making an impact every single play are really going to have the ability to perform well. Um, and so, because of that, I think that they have so much opportunity here. They have so much to work with. And, you know, bet on them because if as long as injuries stay out of the way and things like that, there's no reason that they can't go far this year.
Absolutely. Now I want to hear your dark horse picks. I'm excited.
All right, so my dark horse pick, I'm gonna start it off by saying it might look a little biased, but I'm gonna stand by it, and that's because my
I
first
think I
one
know who
is
this
going to
is.
be the New York Giants. Now, I know what people are thinking. The Giants haven't had a shot in years. It's true, we haven't. That's fine, but I genuinely believe that with the additions made, and if injuries don't get in the way this year, they actually have a chance to be a very solid football team. Now, I say that because they're a very young team. There's no question
Hmm.
about it. When you have, a trio like Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, and Malik Neighbors, that is a young team. And because of that,
Hmm.
they're kind of daredevilish. And that is why injuries are such a big problem. There is no question about that. If injuries get in the way, the Giants season will go off the rails immediately. They do not have the depth that they need to really perform if the first strings go down. So that is why this is a dangerous pick, but I love the pickups that the Giants have been making. I think Arvell Reese is an incredible addition for their defense. I think he's going to do amazing things. I think just recently, the pickup of OBJ and Juju Smith Schuster, yeah, they're both out of their prime. Yeah, if this were 2016, then, best pickups in the world, but it's not. But I do think that they're going to bring a lot to this team. I think that they're going to be able to both help, the team thrive a lot and also help these younger players thrive. When you have a guy like Malik Neighbors who's now being coached by OBJ and Juju Smith Schuster, there's no denying that that is talent right there. And so I
Hmm.
think their core, especially on their offense, and now with a little bit of defensive talent, is going to be really key for them. I think they were only missing a few pieces, and we saw, glimpses of hope last year, like a win over the Chargers in week, 5 or 6, whatever it was. I think they were so close to being there so many times, and they've done just enough to kind of put them over the edge and give them a real opportunity to succeed in this coming year.
Yeah, I almost put this team as my dark horse as well. The only reason why I didn't was because I kind of knew that you were going to put it as yours.
Yeah, that's fair.
Uh,
Fair.
there is there's so much talent on this team. There's so much talent that's so young. I think while a lot of the attention is going to go to Jackson Dart, to Malik Neighbors, to how like flashy the offense is, I think this defense is maybe a year or two away from being really, really, really good. I think Arvell Reese, amazing pick. We talked ad nauseum about how great he was. I think that Abdul Carter finished the season great. I think if you look at his advanced numbers, his pressures, they really sparked up as someone who could be an elite edge rusher. I think you go like down the list, they had like a really, really good team that was kind of all over the place. Now, when it comes to the injury concerns, I think it ties back to what I was saying about the Ravens. I don't think John Harbaugh was the right pickup for coach. I think they should have gone with a younger coordinator, maybe going for their first time as a head coach. I guess I get that they wanted some experience for this young team, but I don't think Harbaugh is it. There is a reason the Ravens fired him. I genuinely believe that the modern NFL has left coaches like Harbaugh who don't really do anything. Now that feels disrespectful because obviously they like manage the team, but he doesn't call plays. He doesn't write plays. He is just purely a like locker room manager. And I think the NFL has left guys like those behind. And combine that with some recent offseason problems, namely Jackson Dart being pretty vocally supportive of the current administration and current president that went against some other players on his team's view, and then those players, instead of Jackson Dart being punished, despite the fact that they were the second to speak out about it. Anyway, whole different thing. I think that this is a team that is like on the verge of something special, but it's a little bit like kind of like a Jenga set where it's like it's gotten really tall. There's like a lot excited, but it's just like one push away from everything kind of crumbling.
I think that's perfectly said in terms of the Jenga set. You are always one piece away from everything just going down. Um, I think the pick for coach is interesting because you have such a young team, and then you have a couple of players with a lot of experience. And so I don't know if I agree, like you said, with such an experienced and older coach, who, was just released. But that being said, you're already taking a risk on so many players that maybe going with a coach who, if nothing else, knows what he's doing, kind of knows how to lead a team through everything. I don't think that's a bad idea. I think it would have been interesting to see a young coach just because that would have made this team entirely hit or miss. It would have either worked
Mhm.
perfectly or it would have all crumbled to the ground. I think this gives them a little bit more reassurance and a little bit more security that, something will go right. So, in
But
that sense,
I feel like Harbaugh gives the team such a like a hard ceiling where it's like we know what John Harbaugh is. We know what John Harbaugh looks like. We know what like I mean, sure, he won a Super Bowl in like 2012, but the game has evolved since then. It's been over a decade plus since then. John Harbaugh, in the times where he's had poor coordinator play, has looked like a completely unusable head coach. Sure, he does give you the floor. He's a good hirer. He can keep the team together. Like all that stuff is true, but does he really give the team like the ceiling necessary to get to where they want to be in just like a year or two?
I think the floor is more important than the ceiling right now. And that's because the Giants have struggled for so long that I think, similar to the Raiders in a way, they're going to need that floor. They're going to need kind of. Giants fans will be disappointed if they have another top 10 pick. That's not to say it's not fun to watch your team pick in the top 10, but it does mean that it probably wasn't very fun the year before watching your team lose all
Mhm.
those games. So I think having a floor where okay, this is a team that can easily be coached to a, 7, 8, 9 win season. And then when you have so much talent like they do, to kind of push them over the edge, maybe get them to that 10, 11, 12 win season. That's where I think Harbaugh is going to be really effective. No, I don't think that he's going to lead this team to the best, year they've ever seen. But I do think he's going to lead them to the best year that they've seen in a while. And
Mhm.
that's what I think Giants fans want. I think that's what the players need right now. They're all super young still, so they have more years in their prime. Um, and I think that that's what he can deliver for them. That is kind of unique right now in the coaching world, in that you can pick up a guy that can almost guarantee you 7 wins or so.
That's fair. I kind of see that, but like my thought on it is I think sometimes fans and front offices of teams look a little bit too short term, where for example, look to the NBA, look at the Kings. The Kings, very like 20 years pretty much of not making the playoffs. Like the fans were getting angry. The front office was like, we have to do something now. We have to win now. So they put a lot of chips into the basket of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. They made the playoffs one season. Everything was great, light the beam, and boom, right back to where they were because the infrastructure for long-term success was not there. And they were putting all their chips in the basket of we need to make the playoffs instead of putting all their chips in the basket of we need to build a championship team. I think when you set your expectations for a team maybe too low. And again, this is like not a direct one-to-one comparison because a lot of those Kings players were on the older side while this Giants team is very young. I think focusing too much on we want to make the playoffs, we want to make the fans happy, we want to keep the front office happy, limits your future when Jackson Dart's rookie contract is done, when Malik Neighbors has to get paid, when Abdul Carter has to get paid. And now you're at that time where you're like, okay, we want to win a Super Bowl, but now your entire coaching infrastructure is set up for a floor rather than a ceiling. Your entire front office has been like celebrating, like, we did it, we made the playoffs, like, let's go, instead of we won the Super Bowl. I think it's going to come back to hurt the Giants in a way that maybe going for a younger, like a younger coach. And honestly, maybe not even like a younger coach. Tomlin, I think, would have done a lot, like a lot of the same benefits that Harbaugh gives, but with the added benefit of being a defensive genius.
Yeah, as you said, Tomlin, I thought about him right before. I'm trying to think of the timeline that it was when the Giants hired Harbaugh versus when Tomlin left the Steelers. Because
Mhm.
it would make much more sense if you're looking for a solid floor. That's a man that literally does not lose more
He
than.
is the perfect floor
Yeah.
if you're looking for that.
So I was thinking about that while I was saying my last piece. I'm wondering what that timeline was because he would be the guy. Um, I think that in terms of looking kind of short-sighted, it'll also be worth thinking about how much Harbaugh can develop these players because there's no doubt that they all still do need more development. And so maybe they do need kind of a locker room coach right now. You put your trust in your offensive and defensive coordinators, and then you say, okay, head coach, it's your job literally just to make sure that these players like develop, kind of become more accustomed to the league and realize in a guy like Jackson Dart's case, you can't dive every play. Like you
Yeah.
see what happened with Tua. We all see what happened with Tua, and now the
Tua was
Dolphins.
less aggressive than Dart too.
Exactly. So I think that especially in Dart's case, he really has to adapt a little bit better to the league. He needs to understand the difference between you know a college player hitting you and an NFL player hitting you. It's big, and it will just result in a lot of concussions, as he's already seen. Um, and I think Harbaugh might be the guy that can kind of open his eyes up a little bit and make him realize, like, hey, I'm not gonna live forever, and at the rate that I'm diving, I'm not gonna live for very long. So, like, you know, he needs
Jeez.
to realize that his career needs to go for longer than he's currently projected to go. Um, he needs to play with a little bit more security, safety, and he needs to use his other resources a little bit better. He has that
Hmm.
talent now. He has Odell and Juju also, and I think Harbaugh's going to be the one that
The
says,
unction.
exactly. Look around, realize that like your teammates are there to help you. You don't have to do everything yourself, and when you do something yourself, make it count when you dive. You look at a guy like Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza went 100% every play in college, but it was only in that national championship game and one or two other big plays where he really took shot after shot and decided to just put his body on the line fully, and he made it count when he did. In Jackson Dart's case, you're watching him do it on a second and 10 in the first quarter of a game. That's not when you're supposed to be doing it. And if
Hmm.
Harbaugh can be the one that says, figure out when to do this, because there is a time, then that's going to be massive for the Giants in the future.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way of putting it. Like the more experienced hand maybe being a little bit of a better voice towards the young players. But anyway, who else do you have at the dark horse spot?
My second dark horse, you kind of hated on earlier without realizing it, but it's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you fully. This team has a fantastic defense, and I think it's a
Okay.
defense that is overlooked a lot. Because when you think about it, you don't really think of a lot of superstars, but nonetheless, they gave up the least yards in the league last year, per game. They had a little bit of a weak spot in their rushing game. It was fixed a little bit with their draft, and they have a QB who, I think still has a lot of potential. Apparently, some people don't. Do you have a guess of who this team is?
So it was a team that I was hating on earlier.
I guess you weren't
A
hating on
lot of
hating
potential.
on a specific player on the team. I should say
Specific player on that team. Is it the Rams with Ty Simpson?
it is not the Rams with Ty Simpson, though.
No,
You were also
no,
hating on the Rams with Ty Simpson, so I'll give that to you.
no.
That's fair. Do you think the Rams will have a chance despite having Ty Simpson on their team?
Dude, they put Ty Simpson in, they're gonna make Puka Nakua look like Mohamed Sanu. No disrespect to Mohamed Sanu.
Mohamed
Awesome
Sanu is
player.
dope, all right? I don't want to
Dude,
hear
I love Mohamed Sanu.
that was
But
I love
Puka's like if Puka turns into Mohamed Sanu's like production, that kind of shows. But anyway, back to the actual team. I think who was I hating on? Is it the my God. Um is it the Saints? Because I just hate them anyway.
not the Saints, but fair pick. It's the Texans.
Oh,
I think the Texans are going to go super far this year, and honestly,
I see
I
it.
would put them as a Super Bowl contender almost. And here's
I
why.
I would agree with that.
I think they already were almost there. But with their new picks of Kalen Rutledge, I think that they fix those little holes. If CJ Stroud can fix just a little bit, if we can kind of see what we saw from him just a few years ago, then this team has nothing stopping them.
I fully agree.
So, everybody, mark your calendars. Texans are going to the Super Bowl. There's no question. You heard it here
To just
first.
get battered by the Rams.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's about how it's gonna go. No, I think their defense is incredibly solid. It didn't really need to be fixed at all. Their offense did have a couple of holes, but they were filled. And because, the adjustments were made that needed to be made, I think the Texans have nothing stopping them from going to the Super Bowl this year. I think this could be their year. And yeah, I really like the team. I really like what they have going for them, and I'm excited to see what they can do.
Honestly, I think just calling that defense like pretty good is just such an understatement to how like historically dominant this team was. Will Anderson Jr., I'd probably put as the second best edge rusher in the league behind Myles Garrett. I think that like as a whole, and then I think Derek Stingley, probably the best corner in the league. It became kind of a bit of a bit by the playoffs time, but it was like more or less true. That team ran two high safety, man coverage, four rushing every single play, and they
Yep.
just said, "We're not going to disguise the coverage like the Seahawks. We're not going to pretend like we're doing anything different. We are going to play the exact same defense every time, and you're going to try to beat us, and you can't." That team should have made the playoffs. That team should have beat the Patriots. It is like I when I was watching that game on my phone on a car ride back like across California, I was like, surely the Texans are going to win this. They keep just destroying the Patriots on defense. And guess what kept happening? CJ Stroud kept messing up. It was one of the like biggest choke jobs like from a court like the biggest like lights are too bright scenarios. I think if rookie CJ Stroud was on that team, which is crazy to say about a year three quarterback, like if you put rookie CJ Stroud on that team, I think they make and potentially win the Super Bowl for that team because just the manner that defense just crushes people. And like it's just such a like incredibly fun defense to watch where it's like, "Oh my goodness, they are just killing them every play."
Yeah. The crazy part to me is, this is a the Texans are a team that historically have been based around like one superstar. You automatically think of J.J. Watt,
Yeah.
David Clowney, like these are individual players that are just fantastic, and the rest of them were just not there really.
Mm,
Brian is another one, but like this is now a team where you can't really obviously you can name a lot of individuals, but you can't name the star player. You can't name one individual that is far and away better than everyone else, and that's because all
mhm,
of them are at such a high level that it really is a total team effort that is doing the exact job that they need to do. They're so dominant, they hit so hard.
mhm.
It's a fun defense to watch because you're not watching one or two players, you're watching the entire team just kind of work as a unit.
Yeah. Last season, I think we really were treated to three of some of the, I don't want to say best defenses of all time, but almost there. Like three incredibly high level defenses. The Seattle Seahawks, obviously they won the Super Bowl. They won by just pure like disguise coverages. You'd have cornerbacks blitzing out of nowhere. Mike McDonald, like the psychopath, he would have like his linebackers drop into being safeties. He would have his edge rushers drop to being linebackers and have his cornerbacks become edge rushers. Like there's nothing that an offensive coordinator could like prepare for. And even Sean McVay, like in that NFC Championship game, kind of looked rattled at points. Then you look at the Broncos defense, absolutely shut down on the corners. Like Pat Surtain obviously being the best player there, but they just got so many sacks because there's nowhere to throw against them. And then, of course, like we mentioned, this Houston Texans defense, which was the youngest, I think it's the youngest of the three,
A three, I
that
think.
like that just again just line it up and see if you can beat us because you can't. And I really like this pick. I would honestly say that they're too good to be a dark horse because,
Fair.
like again, they're maybe like C.J. Stroud getting up on the right side of the bed away from making the Super Bowl. Like
Exactly.
that, yeah. This is a just not just historically good defense, a historically good and growing defense.
Yeah. They're going to be fun to watch for sure. I have really high hopes for them, so we'll see what happens. But
Hmm.
I gave us two winners, so I think you get to close us out with your loser. And we're just going to
Hmm.
trust that you bring what you've got to the board. Let's hear it.
This one's maybe a bit controversial.
Okay.
I know my little brother would definitely debate me for this one and probably will when this episode comes out.
Fair enough.
I, for honestly, a lot of this kind of doubted myself if I even want to put this as the bust for this next season. But the more that I looked into it, the more that I'm confident about it. This is a team that has done horrifically in the draft recently. Just one player in the last two drafts have started for them for 1 year. The last two drafts, one starter. They've gone down the rankings defensively. They from going from a really elite defense to now average to then below average. They are full of bad contracts, bad free agency pickups, and clearly desperate to get any sort of talent. They've just gotten older. They've gotten like they're relying too much on their star. And this is a team that made, I think, one of the like such an underwhelming coaching decision, like coaching hiring decision. I thought it really does not do anything to fix their issues. And I am very sure maybe this team still makes the playoffs, but I think their Super Bowl window for the time being is closed. Who do you think it is?
I have a guess. I feel like I could be wrong.
Mhm.
You might have given it away with the superstar. Is it the Bills?
It is the
There
Bills.
we go.
So before we get into it, obviously Josh Allen is still an MVP level player.
Yeah.
He is still so good, but he is all the Bills are. And here I'm just going to go into some numbers and some like little pieces to like show that I think this is the season where the cracks that have been showing for these last two seasons are really, really going to come through. First, these are the rankings in points allowed per game by the Bills. In 2021, they were first in the league. They had the best defense in terms of points allowed. In 2022, they were second. In 2023, they were fourth. In 2024, they were 11th. And in 2025, they were 12th. And now their defensive coach, Sean McDermott, is gone. But it's not only him. Some other parts about this team that look bad before I get into the coaching. Bad contracts. $11.7 million to Josh Palmer. $7 million to Michael Hokut, a player I didn't even know existed until I like pulled up the Bills' payroll. He played 2 games last season and didn't start either of them. They have $46 million in dead money that is going to no one. And in order to replace all this talent that they've been losing, they are signing bad. Not I don't want to say bad. They are forced to sign and pick up older players that have lost value. For example, in free agency, they got Bradley Chubb, a good player by all means. He had 8.5 sacks. He had a high pressure rate. But the season before that, he was injured with an ACL tear. He's entering his year 30 season. They signed him for 3 years. They got CJ Gardner Johnson and Geno Stone on 1 year deals to be their safety duo. They've been just churning through safeties ever since Jordan Poyer. And I'm losing it on the other major safety that they had left. They've just not been able to have a consistent safety room. They also picked up D. Alford from the Atlanta Falcons to be their. I don't know if they want him to be their cornerback one. I hope they don't want him to be their cornerback one. I'll just say it again. I watched a lot of D. Alford. The fact that they gave him a 3 year deal is startling. This is a team, and I know I'm rambling at this point. I'll give you a second, but I'm still going. Their coaching hire. They didn't hire a new coach. They didn't hire an up and coming offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. They hired their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, who sure brought Josh Allen to an MVP level, you could say. They clearly work well together. But this is a team with systemic issues that fell apart offensively in the playoffs last year. I don't think Joe Brady, who was already on the staff that was failing Josh Allen and this team, is suddenly going to change things for the better, especially since their general manager wasn't fired after all this. The fact that their general manager got to stick around after 2 drafts of no usable players is ridiculous. And then more than just all this, their trades, they're just leaking value. They are like they traded their second round pick for DJ Moore, who underperformed in Chicago and looked like he didn't even want to play football for them. Like this is a team that is just limping along and only looks elite because they have Josh Allen. They're getting older. They're losing their valuable assets. They're losing assets in terms of actual player value. They are not trading their players at the right time. They're letting them leave in free agency. They are just this team, I feel like, is at the point where they are about to crumble. And it's going to be up to the front office who, if this front office is getting kept, I don't think they're going to be able to do it in order to help Josh Allen, who's now going into his year 30 season.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be kind of like the dreamer versus the realist situation because I can't sit here and be like, "Oh, I don't hope that the Bills do well." But everything that you said is exactly true. Josh Allen is the Buffalo Bills right now. It hurts to
Mhm.
say it and it hurts to see it. Um, but that is the truth, unfortunately. Um, it's like you said, they've had one starter in their last 2 drafts. You can't do that. Like, you can't do
Yeah.
that expect to have a successful future. They're getting, players that just aren't the caliber that they need. They don't need a bunch of like Josh Allens all over the field, but they do need talent. Stephon Diggs wasn't, in his Vikings prime when he went to Buffalo, but he was definitely a very solid pickup. I would almost argue that the
He
Bills
was a Pro Bowler every year he's there.
exactly. I would argue that the Bills should have gotten, Juju Smith-Schuster and OBJ as like worked as much as they could to get them rather than a player like DJ Moore. Because they're going to be cheaper. They're going to be, at least have success in the past, so you're going to know that they have a lot to offer. I think the fact that they keep getting older and older, yeah, is finally going to start, having an effect. We used to look at the Bills and they would play the Chiefs every year for who got to play in the Super Bowl, and every year it was kind of a question of, okay, this could happen for the Bills. This could be their year.
Mm,
And that's fine for the first, 2 years or so of that. But when it keeps happening and you're not really replacing players, you're just losing them
mhm.
to old age, or they're just kind of fading away. That's really going to start to hurt you. We saw it with the Chiefs. The Chiefs lost a lot of their players, but when they were in their prime, they made it count. The Bills
Exactly.
didn't make it count when they were in their prime, and so now they're working with a lot of older players. Josh Allen is still an MVP talent, and in a way, it's almost like having Miles Garrett on the Browns. It's a
Yeah,
really,
that's not
really
crazy to
talented
say.
player, but if you take away Josh Allen, I would love to see how well the Bills will do, because right now the Bills can get so much for him, and I don't know if he's going to take them to a Super Bowl. I don't know if he can, because you can't carry a 22-person team by yourself. And
Hmm.
so
He's the greatest pilot on a paper airplane right now.
exactly. Like, it's just you can't do that much with this team, and I kind of do wish Josh Allen would go to a team that has the bones for him to really make a push. Because I think they will go back to the playoffs this year. I do think
I
that,
agree. I do
and
think they'll make the playoffs.
right, and I think once again they will be out in the divisional round, or maybe the AFC Championship.
I don't
Doubtful.
think they get that far.
Yeah,
I think the AFC has honestly passed the Bills behind. I think like all the things before, bad contracts, poor drafting, the way that you build a Super Bowl team once you have already paid your MVP level quarterback is to hit on cheap rookies who have talent more than their age. Look at the Seahawks. Nick Emenwari as a rookie, one of the best safety slash nickel combos in the league. But now you look at the Bills, they have been continuously losing talent to both age and to contracts, and their replacements for them are simply not good enough. Like, we'll have to see how this draft goes, but honestly, with the history that this front office has, like, where is the hope that this draft is going to be any better? They didn't even have a first round pick. This is like there's Josh Allen has done so much to cover up the holes of such an incomplete and frankly laughably bad team that is being put into contention territory purely because of his heroics rather than the actual team being able to propel. And honestly, we could see that Sean McDermott, who should be criticized, was pulling a lot more weight than it looked like because this defense is getting older, it's getting more full of 1 year replacement older players that are just entering on veteran minimums and are just like plugging in the gaps. They had Joey Bosa as their main edge rusher last season. Like, and they still managed to have a solid middle of the pack defense despite their lack of talent. And now the coach who was in charge of that defense is gone. I don't think Joe Brady is the man for this team. I think we could either see a like whatever way it goes. I think we're either going to see a miniature fall off for the Bills, where maybe they're a wild card team, or we could potentially see a catastrophic fall off from the Bills, where they end up being in the 7, 6, 8 like win territory, depending on Josh Allen's health or the defensive identity.
Yeah, I think as long as Allen stays healthy, then they will still be a wild card team. I think Josh Allen is just simply put too talented. But it does kind of remind me of like the years where Tom Brady was on the Buccaneers. Um,
Hmm.
when he was on that team, it was Tom Brady that was just dragging the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl. It just was, and that's okay because he had just enough talent behind him so that they could get it done. It wasn't
But they also had one of the best defenses in the league at the
right,
time.
exactly, and they also had those hidden things that people don't. No one's going to look at the defense first. They will look at the defense, but they're not going to look at it first. They're going to look at how many points is the team putting up.
Hmm.
Bills have that. Then look past Josh Allen because that's where everyone stops. You look at Josh Allen and you say he is MVP, he is incredible, and that is true. Like there's no question about that. But then look past that at all, and it kind of hurts to say it out loud, but they just don't have that much behind him,
They
and
don't.
that's where teams like the Super Bowl teams that you kind of look at and you think it's a little strange that they won it, they have the things behind it that they need to push themselves over the edge. Yeah, maybe it's one or two players that are really making an impact, but those lower level players, they are still making just as big an impact, just at a lower level altogether.
Hmm.
Bills don't have anybody making that impact. It's a bunch of now older players that just aren't getting the job done. Um, you said that they might fall off. If Josh Allen gets injured, yeah, I think that this Bills team could have a really rough year.
If you remove Josh Allen from this Bills team, like you don't think about him at all, this is a team that is picking in the top three.
Hmm.
And I think that when you think about it that way, if even if he like tweaks his ankle and is out for 3 weeks, those are three losses, period, done. Three losses for the Bills. If he like gets a bigger injury, like he pulls his hamstring, he's out for like 6 games maybe. That is 6 straight losses. This is a team that has frankly disrespected Josh Allen with how much they're putting on him and how much they have failed to make a competitive team around him. And it is a miracle that he has even made this team like a Super Bowl pick for many years now because of him. Like honestly, despite him winning MVP 2 seasons ago, and despite the Bills being in contention last season, I genuinely think the best shot this Bills team ever had was in 2020 when they lost to the Patriots in not to the Patriots when they lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. That was the most complete team. Sure, Josh Allen wasn't as good as he was now, sure the that like he was an MVP candidate, but he wasn't like MVP winner Josh Allen. But that team was
Yeah,
full of young play. Yeah, it was full of young, talented players who were all on longer term deals than just like one like year contracts. And ever since then, the team has failed to replenish talent. They have failed to maintain talent. They have failed to like adequately keep this team at championship level. And the only thing that has kept them at like the 13 win threshold has been Josh Allen progressing.
yeah. I mean, it's aggressive, but I think it's fair.
Mhm.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Um, I don't think they're going to release him ever, but I don't
I
think they're going to do a lot with him.
think Buffalo would burn if they did that.
Yeah, I know, literally. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Do you have any quick bus picks that you want to do right at the end? I know I kind of took a lot of the time there.
You know what? I think you kind of covered mine because the Bills were up there for me. Yeah, I don't think your brother's gonna be too happy with us, but I gotta, I gotta just go with them because it is interesting when you look past, the Josh Allen cover, and that's a really solid cover, but it's not a Super Bowl winning cover. Um, it's an MVP cover. So the question is, do you want the MVP on your team or do you want a Super Bowl team? Um, and it'll be interesting to see what the Bills pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a really fun episode. I loved ranting about poor front office decisions. It's great to have you back in Atlanta, back down south, Sam.
Nice to be back.
It's great. Absolutely. And I hope we can start churning out these episodes more for y'all. Please make sure to comment, leave us your thoughts if you disagree or if you agree with anything that we said. Please let us know. Please share, please like whatever it is that you want to do. And we hope to see you soon.